Hello and welcome to another podcast featuring architect Aastha, a highly accomplished professional with a passion for sustainable and climate responsive architecture. With over 7 years of experience in the corporate and industrial sectors, Aastha has established herself as a leading expert in the field of climate responsive designs and is a certified professional in GRIHA, a national green building rating system in India. Aastha's portfolio includes successful residential projects in Delhi NCR, where she has created spaces that reflect her passion for vernacular and traditional architecture. Join us as we delve deeper into the world of sustainable architecture with architect Aastha. Hi, Aastha. Welcome to our podcast.
Hi, Himani. Thank you so much for having me and for this introduction. And it's a great pleasure to join podcast with Arthur. And I'm quite excited to chit chat with you on the same topic, which is sustainable and sustainability in architecture.
Let's start with uh, what you are doing. So, how do you define the role of architects in building industry and promoting sustainability?
Okay, so role of an architect, it's as a lot of people might think is to draw lines and shape and design buildings only, but it's actually more than that. And one of the important role of an architect is also to educate the client or owner who is coming to him or her about the negative impacts of a particular project that they are coming up with. For example, going for some kind of material, going for steel, how much steel, going for heavy structure, why, and what structure, what happens to the space to volume ratios, what happens to the foregrounds and backgrounds of a project. So basically, what could be the subsequent effect of having an unconscious, approach towards the environment while building, which I think a lot of people are practicing these days, and it's kind of creating troubles also. We'll come to that maybe in some point if it allows. So basically, role of an architect for buildings can be compared to the role of a doctor for patients. So a lot of practitioners are not looking it in a way of this manner most of the time, unfortunately, because of the money gain. But apart from this, there is much more about making the client know about the need and understand him or her about the context of a particular area, to understand them, to make them understand the context of development as we know it today. So need to understand what a building is and where it is being specially made. So I think the intense knowledge of context is very, very important. And this is where promoting sustainability also comes into picture, as you asked. So if we architects will promote it and, we'll be firm on it, and then it will start making a big difference for sure. As I mean, I don't know if you know that the modern world allows us to coexist with the old as well as new. So, why can't we keep in mind our old best practices and follow them while we still, being able to cope up with the modern challenges that come up? Yeah.
So let's come to the next question. Can you explain
Hmm.
the relationship between sustainable architecture and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, like also known as the SDGs?
Okay, so sustainable development goals, yeah. So I think sustainable architecture first I would like to take up. Sustainable architecture is a very recently coined vast term. When I say recently, I mean by 1980s. When the UN Brundtland report came out, talking about, stating the definition of sustainable development, first of all. And so sustainable development, they talked and they told that it is a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the, future generations' needs also. So all of a sudden in 1980s, after this report and around that time, there was a need to step back and slow down and think about, what went wrong during the industrial revolution which came, and globalization which was happening. So globalization and an industrial revolution did various impacts, made various impacts on various fields of society. be it art, architecture, literature, construction, manufacturing, whatever. The list goes on. It, completely disrupted the idea of context. It standardized everything and it globalized everything. That, okay, I am sitting here, I can wear a jeans and a top. You can wear a jeans and a top. Somebody else on in some other part of the world can wear same, and yet we cannot identify each other as a local thing. Everything is standardized. So similarly, in architecture also, people realized that there is a need to control when we talk about sustainable architecture coming into the picture. So I think that was, seemingly what we looked as innovation and technological advancement. We looked at industrial revolution to it, but in later part we thought that this fast pace this fast amount of construction and production happening, the fast pace amount of emissions, amount of pollution, amount of mass productions, mass housings, these all are basically making negative impacts on the environment, and due to which our ecology is being disturbed. So then people stood up, I think, and sustainable architecture came into the picture in words, and this term was coined, which can be achieved by various methods. And sustainability architecture or sustainability to achieve it has three pillars: economic, viable, environmental friendly, and socially viable. So these are three legs of sustainability. So I think that came into existence during that period. And as an architect, what I feel is sustainable architecture should not be a separate thing from architecture as a process. It should be everybody's approach or every architect's approach towards buildings and built environment as a professional. And, like a default setting, which needs to be taken care of at first. And if we talk about sustainable development goals, there are a lot of schemes, standards, policies, and various implementable directives which are there under various goals of sustainable development. I guess there are good health and well-being is there, which which talks about the indoor air quality, the interiors, materials, ventilation systems, HVAC. Clean water and sanitation is one of the goal, which talks about wastewater management, waste management, retreating the water, grey water, saving water. So it revolves around that. I think apart from that, there is some goal related to affordable and clean energy, and where we talk about photovoltaics, use of photovoltaics and renewable sources of energy for the mm, so-called built environment we have. There is industry innovation, and I think there is climate action. There is sustainable cities and communities. So I think there are more than a couple of goals, which goes in hand with the architecture also. Yeah.
That's good. I really like the point that where you said that it should be the default setting for every
Yeah.
architect. So that's a great thing to take away from here. So, what is the difference between traditional architecture and sustainable architecture, and also how are they related?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. A lot of people have, notion that these are two separate things. But what I understand is they are not two separate things. They are related for sure. And you can even say that traditional architecture, in fact, has been an inspiration for sustainable architecture. So, or moreover, you can say that these can be understood as two names given to two different timelines in history of built environment. So basically, when our society was Neolithic, when we were, uh, kind of a society who used to just live upon cattle feeding and, just farming. So when our society was Neolithic, meaning that when the settlement was just beginning to establish themselves or the core village communities were coming forward, they followed traditional ways of making their own homes and buildings or some common buildings that they made. And by the time development happened, when the villages got converted into towns, towns got converted into cities, So the tradition became, or the traditional architecture kind of became a layer which could be applied on a modern building. The increase in population, the increase in demand, the increase in infrastructure, roads, railways, and all kind of physical infrastructure, it kind of made things alarming, and it forced us to be, or it kind of forced us to realize that we need to get into sustainable mode, otherwise we'll finish off all the things with us. So nowadays, I think traditional practice is a part of sustainable architecture, as we don't want to forget or let go of those grounding feelings that traditional architecture gives us. For example, forts and havelis, if you have seen, they give a feel of mud plaster on the walls, coolness of thick walls. Even in this kind of scorching sun, you feel cool inside a haveli or a fort. Why is that? Because they were going hand in hand with the climate. They were going hand in hand with the context of that particular place. So the traditional architecture and sustainable architecture today also differ in their approach because it is related to a building's life cycle. Traditional architecture is focused on designing a building that could last for generations, like I gave you example. Whereas sustainable architecture, considers the entire life cycle of a building, including construction, operation, and what happens after the building needs to be demolished, things like that. So it has kind of a modern layer added to traditional, you can say. So that's my point here. And interestingly, to note that many architects today are embracing their traditional architectural practice and trying to infuse little practices in modern sustainable technologies also, which is a great way to fuse and preserve traditional architecture.
I was recently discussing with my mother about the same thing. We have a house in village. So it used to be like that. The traditional houses were like that, that you didn't even need a fan in the summers. So yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
it has changed
Just
a lot
because
now.
of the mass,
Yes, we now
just
we
because
need
of the
AC.
mass.
It's all the time.
Now we want quick homes and fast homes, so we build thin walls.
Yes. Okay, so could you walk us through the design process of a sustainable architecture and how it differs from the conventional design practices?
Oh. Normally, the design, or if I say in conventional way of practice, I would, just serve the idea of proposing design for the things related to site and specific, just the function and just the usage of the design. So, okay, you and so, and you want to make a house. What do you want in it? Okay, done, and the plan or the layout is ready. But in sustainable design, we might offer a look at the things as well as around the site also. What are the immediate surroundings like, what are the needs of the immediate surroundings of the site like, what the site's impact could be on the immediate surroundings. Is my neighborhood able to cater a 5-story building, or my neighborhood is only catering that I should build a ground floor house? Is my front road is catering to parking or not? Because these create urban problems.
Yeah.
So sustainable, design goes hand in hand with keeping in mind the design requirement of the project in detail. In conventional design process, it can start directly with a plan or a layout, or discussing function and purpose. But in sustainable design or layout, the project is based on analysis of the site, deep analysis, client's requirements, functions, usage, purpose, climate responsive simulations in a software maybe or manual, or respect to the orientation of the sun, how the sun is around the site, how the air is flowing, what is the prevailing direction of the wind, how the surroundings are like. That makes building more climate responsive and context responsive. And it is an understanding that it should be an understanding for the professional as well as it should be a conscious understanding for the client also. Not, not just going behind fancy materials, is that's what I want to say. And I mean, overall, the design process of sustainable architecture is more comprehensive and inclusive approach to a building design, which seeks to promote every aspect. It's kind of a holistic thing when we promote the well-being of the people also, and we contribute in a little thing for the planet. It requires a shift in the mindset, I understand, for the professionals as well as the clients, because it has become a money game for for lot of developers and building contractors. But to prioritize sustainable practices and recognize the value of creating buildings that are not only functional but also regenerative and sustained for a longer period of time. That is something which talks about the process it involves. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, yes. So, how is the Indian market responding to the sustainable design process in the architecture field?
So, very interesting question again. Basically, the sustainable design in India, it started with climate responsive buildings that, are after independence architects built, like what Le Corbusier did in Chandigarh. Most of his buildings he made in India, especially, were climate responsive. He used concrete, he used steel, that is all understood. But the moment you enter the building, you know that it is climately, it is coping with the climate, it is coping up with the sun. So today also we have a lot of architects practicing on the same footprints, including me. And, we all also know that, there are building certifications that has come up in India like GRIHA and IGBC, USGBC, which kind of help us to making the clients aware about the rules which or the sustainable design, low impact design, and its importance in today's era. So I think by applying these rules, the quality of life will increase for the user, and the user is also now being educated for this. And also, I think according to a survey conducted by IGBC in 2020, around 60% of Indian consumers were willing to pay more for the homes that were more sustainable and environmental friendly rather than, investing in a conventional type of a home, because it then consumes more, of your money, basically. There was another study by TERI, the Energy and Resource Institute, Delhi, in 2019, which found that more than 80% of Indian consumers were aware of the concept of sustainability. So, no doubt there is awareness in the market, and there is a growing demand for sustainable design homes as well, with a significant percentage. But the trend is likely to continue, and I hope it really continues, because the environment that we are living in is really wanting to take a turn back and start the quality of life as a priority, and making the better quality of life as a priority.
Okay, so it's the last question for you. So, for our viewers who are interested in making an impact with the sustainable architecture, what steps would you recommend that they take to get started, and what resources are available to them?
First one is to kind of first understand what sustainability is. It's not just a buzzword, it's a way of life that I understand. And it's something that we need to embrace to preserve our planet for the future generations. It's not just a sentence, it's actually a very social problem that we are going through. And things are there, which is the future of sustainability is there. Regenerative design is coming up. As you all know by now, that it has a three critical aspect. We can actually start by asking ourselves if we truly need something before buying it. We should actually ask ourselves 10 times if you really need it, and 10 times you should think about, actually you should think about it. So, decluttering our homes is one example, making our buildings energy efficient by using water saving taps is one. Rainwater harvesting, not just on paper or drawings, actually harvesting the rainwater, wastewater treatment, and thick walls for our homes. Uh, these are some of the small practical ways to achieve sustainability in your life. And there is fast fashion, fast food, fast consumption, fast processes, fast everything, and I, I think anything which is that fast, it cannot be efficient and sustainable. So in our homes, maybe choosing the right material is also crucial For example, we can avoid stone or marble floors. You know, the reason is why it captures a lot of heat during the day in summer months, and it equally emits back inside the room in the night. So you never feel cool inside your home. But there was a trend that, I want Italian marble or I want a marble or a stone inside my home. But anyways, so that could be one step. Proper ventilation in our homes is another essential aspect that can help us stay comfortable inside it. Energy consumption, use of more and more vernacular and traditional material, and most importantly, building according to the context of the area. So I mean, if I'm making a building in South India, if I'm making a building in Gujarat or Kashmir or Ladakh or Delhi, it should all speak to that particular language. The building should also speak that language. So, therefore, I think adopting sustainability in our daily lives is very crucial these days. Let's work towards that, and I hope for a sustainable future for ourselves and our planet. At least I try to maintain that in my practice.
Thank you so much for the
Yeah, thank you.
insights. For the viewers who want to connect with Astha, we'll share her details in the description box. And you can join our community, artha.org, where like-minded people are sharing their ideas. We would love to see you all there. Thank you so much, Astha, for giving us your precious time.
Thank you so much.
Okay.